Now from whining, it's just groaning.
All right. You got everything over there?
Yes, I do.
You know what? Let me do this. Pick those up. Because that microphone's attached to the...
Yeah, gotcha.
To the table.
Put a mat down.
Yeah, which is connected to the hip bone, which is connected to...
Muffle them some.
Yeah. There you go.
That sounds much better.
Do you have a story or anything you want to freeform in the beginning? Because I got a story about my wife's horse again. How horse people are crazy.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll start with that and we can talk about that for a little bit and then we'll get into the show. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not going to call it Dusty's story. I'm just going to discuss some variants of saddle issues that you might incur. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Here we go.
Right.
Now for something special. The unit is self-contained with its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright, and so on. It's a rigorous training dished out who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
We take you behind the scenes now to show just some of the interesting aspects of this training.
Welcome to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stine is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. In this episode, we'll get into common saddle problems, also Navicular Syndrome. Did I say that right, Mike?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I was practicing. And shoe modifications. What is the difference between a rocker toe and a rocker shoe? All this and much, much more will be discussed here on Equine Dynamics. And over to my far right hand side is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm good. Happy Valentine's, Travis.
Oh, thanks, Mike. What'd you bring me? A bunch of horseshoes?
Well, yeah, I got just some roses and candy.
So last week you had a correction on something that you said last week about the farriers summit or whatever.
Yeah. I spoke in 2020, and they reran it in 2021. I was stuck in 2000.
You kept saying 2000. So this is recently. So you were in 2020
and 2021,
and they repeated it in 2021. Well, I have another issue for you. I have another episode of Horse People Are Crazy. So my wife, as you know, has a horse that's off to day camp. It's over at another place being boarded, training and all this stuff over there. I believe you were over there this weekend doing the horse's feet. And you know that the horses get turned out during the day and sometimes come in at night. Well, the first week that the horse was there, now the horse's name is Dominique. I'm just going to call it Dominique. That way I can stop saying this horse. It's my wife's horse. So Dominique is over there in the pasture, and she's got pasture buddies. Not in the same pasture, but, you know, the pastures are all linked together.
You can't call her what you're not. You usually call her when you're not talking to your wife right now, huh?
I call her Ding Dong. Come here, Ding Dong. So they were bringing in the other horses, and Dominique was allowed to be out in the pasture by herself. Well, Dominique doesn't like being in the pasture by herself. She needs to have a pasture buddy. So, of course, Dominique, it's an acre-sized pasture. She's running all over the place. So the owner of the barn had to call my wife and say, hey, your horse is getting crazy out here. You know, come look at the horse. So she comes out there, of course. She was fine. The horse just had a little panic attack. And one of the other riders that was out there goes, oh, you've got the crazy horse, don't you? Well, my wife took offense to that and said, how dare you call my child crazy? You know, that type deal. And she kind of puffed up her feathers. Next day, went out there and rode Dominique in the arena. Same lady was out there, saw Dominique ride. And now, all of a sudden, turn of cheek here. Oh, your horse is so beautiful. Your horse rides so smoothly. I can't believe all this stuff. Who's your trainer? Who's your farrier? I need this. And they got to be friends and they got to talk, which is great because my wife doesn't have a whole lot of equestrian friends. And so you might get a phone call from this lady, and I'm sure Brett, her trainer, will also get a call from her as well. And they're on the same level. They are dealing with the same type styles as far as riding and everything. So that's, again, horse people. Horse people are crazy.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that one with you. I did get to speak to a lady at the barn, and it was quite nice to me.
Uh-huh. But you probably had your chaps on. You probably, you had that big old rig, that truck that you pull with all your horseshoes and the gears and the forge and everything on the back of that thing. So they knew that you were part of the scene, not like me walking in there with my tennis shoes and shorts on. They're like, oh, who's this guy?
Well, next time you go over there, get you some brand new shiny cowboy boots. Look like a dime store cowboy.
You know what I'm going to do?
See what kind of response you get.
I'm going to get the biggest cowboy hat I can find. I'm going to get the biggest silver Mexican belt buckle I can find. I'm going to get the gaudiest, awful cowboy boots in there. I'm going to look like the spaghetti western guy walking in there. I'll have spurs on that, ching, ching, ching. And I'm going to, spit in a cup and go, hey, everybody, where's my horse? And see how they respond. They'll probably throw me out still.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Probably a lot faster. But I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I'll take picturs. All right, guys, we got a big show to get into, so stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. The biggest cowboy hat I can find, with all the feathers and stuff. I'll stuck it like Smokey and the Bandit type.
There you go. There you go. You'd fit right in. I promise.
Yeah, right. I won't stick out.
And not a speck of dirt on anything.
So do you want to come back and talk about the Navicular Syndrome, or do you want to come back and talk about the horse or the saddles?
Let's talk about the horse and the saddles.
Okay. And
because we ended up with Navicular Syndrome with her, and the saddle is actually part of it.
Okay. So we'll come back and talk about saddle issues and stuff.
If we get a B anything, well, by God, we're good.
Pass, fail. All right, here we go. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the official farrier of the 2018 World Equestrian Games. Over to my far hand side is Mike Stine.
Hello, Travis.
Hello. And don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. And the way you see that is go over to YouTube, search Equine Dynamics. You'll see that. Make sure you subscribe. Mike's got a whole bunch of videos that he's going to put together. You were going to bring a leg in here, but he was going to do a video at the house as far as the actual horse leg, the bone structure, and all that. So make sure you subscribe to that as well. And if you have any questions for Mike Stine, we can play it on and answer them on the very next podcast as well. The way you do that is go to equinedynamics.com, fill out the little contact form at the bottom. Make sure you put podcast in the subject line, and that way he can decipher between all his other emails that he's getting. Now, you were talking about common saddle problems, and what I have here on my paper is Dusty's story. So tell me about Dusty and the story.
Well, I'll tell you, I go back to, this is around the beginning of time. And this goes back before I'd ever picked up a hammer to shoe a horse or anything like that. Horse that we had been dealing with, that young mare, nice and quiet. She was always quiet, started under saddle the whole bit. And as she aged, we started getting behavior problems. She's got this weird thing. She just shakes. Her whole body, she'd go along and just shake her whole body. And then she'd go, after a while, we're like, why is she doing this? And, of course, we never related it to saddle fit because, the saddle was strapped on the horse's back, must fit. And the other problem is pushing the saddle back. She always pushes the saddle back. So you put a breastplate on. We'll hold it up there. And as horses grow, they change.
Like children do.
They get wider. They get, it went on her when she was young, must go on her now. But learned later on, after many years of, we got to do something about her behavior problem. Well, sometimes pain, sometimes aggravation creates behavior problems. It does with me.
Yeah.
And what was happening was when I got involved with Ray Morris, and this was several years down the road, and some other people also, and starting to learn about horses, got into shoeing and all the problems and that you run into, and where are some of the forces causing some of the problems coming in. Well, I learned later that saddle's supposed to fit the rib cage. Guess what? It's not supposed to fit the shoulders. Shoulders have to move. If you're locking up the shoulders, you create a lot of downforce and impact on the front end, which is going to get into our next subject. But during that time, we're fixing this and probably doing all the wrong things because, as the horse fills out, the rib cage broadens.
As a horse builds muscles and builds all
Right.
that, you know, I mean, it's just like an athlete. The athlete wouldn't wear the same pants that he started working out with, you know.
Well,
what
it's
he
kind
ends
of
up-
like, you know, as far as the body and all that, you start off riding the horse. We're dealing with a 14-year-old kid, and now it's matured out. Everything's changed. Might be the sort of same general pattern, but everything's changed. Gotten bigger, gotten taller, rib cage has gotten broader. But, you know, that was her saddle. We knew it. That's where what she started riding in. But I learned after a while that, you know, the horse is trying to push the saddle back off of the shoulder, the rib cage, the top of the scapula rotating. The rotation point of the shoulder is actually below the elbow joint. So when the leg reaches forward, the scapula rotates back. And if you're blocking that with your saddle and you ask a horse to extend, and one of the common things that I ran into with particular styles of showing horse has too much knee action. Well, if you block that shoulder, block that scapula, the leg rotates below the elbow joint, that rotation's blocked, then it throws all the movement into the elbow of the horse. So what happens when the horse was reaching forward, trying to get full extension forward, all the movement is isolated down towards more of the elbow, so that makes the knee come up because the leg can't move any other way.
So can she still use this saddle? Does it need to be reflocked, or is it a whole different saddle?
Well, this is a whole different saddle. We came up more Western, and this was a Western saddle. But you know, the thing is, it's not with that. It is the same with an English saddle. If you fit an English saddle up onto the shoulders and withers, and they put it back, there are some people that run a breastplate on an English saddle occasionally. I think it's more of a thing with Western saddles, but you know, when you put a saddle on the back and you rock it, it'll kind of want to settle into place. And another thing is, I was early on taught to put the girth right behind the elbow. Well, if you rub up under the belly of the horse, there's a nice little place behind the chest muscle that a girth lays in real nice. If you're putting it up forward, you're putting it onto the chest muscle, locking it down. And there again, because of that placement, as far as the leg coming back, you're stopping travel of the leg with the girth itself. So there's a lot I didn't know about saddles, and then getting involved with Ray Morris, who's a saddle fitter from New Zealand, the blind fellow's saddle fitter and massage therapist. He operated his Ramosa Saddlery and Horseback Basics. He taught a lot of people to massage. And that's where my massage background, most of it comes from, is working with Ray. But, you know, I started learning from Ray, and I'd learned some bits and pieces because I was hunting for answers, because you're always chasing problems with a horse and what's going on. Mechanically, I'm doing what I should be here, and we're not getting the relief. There's so much that comes up top, and that's why we need to learn to look at up top and start figuring out what's going on.
So what was causing the horse to physically shake, though? Was it nerves? Was it
Comfort.
It's just a comfort issue.
I can't say that the horse necessarily had any nerve problems, but a couple of things. Saddle was too far forward. We pulled it too far forward. The tree that we're using, since she had broadened out, was narrower than the horse was.
Pinching her.
So you got this big, wide Western tree, and you narrow it up, and you get down onto the points of the tree. And over time, Ray told me, where you got scar tissue, and you can fill into saddles where, you know, we're clearing the wither, so it's a good fit, but we're not fitting the rib cage. And it's real easy to people to see the clearance on the withers, and it's like, oh, you just have how much room here, get whatever. But as long as it's clear, it's clear. If it's rubbing on top of your withers, you got a problem. And, you know, when you start doing that, you start creating muscle atrophy behind the withers. And you start getting a hollow in the pocket, and then that just, you know, the front of the saddle drops into the hollow, and that creates more of the problem. And then you got a horse that, because the shoulders can't move, they can't get the hind end under. If they can't get the hind end under, they're not lifting off the front end. You're creating impact that way. You're also, the placement of your weight on the body, it throws your body forward and on the horse, more impact on the front end. Horse can't fully use the shoulders, so that shoulder is free floating. It's not like our shoulder, not a ball and socket. So it can come out and reach, and the muscles in the shoulder can work as a bit of a shock absorber, saving impact on the front end. You're not getting full length of stride. You're creating impact on the front end. Helps crush the heels, beats up the back of the foot.
So you're telling me the saddle that my wife just bought for, I think, $6,500 within a couple years, is that going to be obsolete for the horse that she has now, and she's going to have to sell it and get another saddle? Because, she trains the horse. She trains 3 times a week. I said trains, lessons, or whatever the lingo is that they use. And the horse, I'm sure, is going to develop different. It's going to get broader. It's going to get bulkier. It's going to, look like a tank after a while.
How old is your mare?
I think she's 8.
Well, she should be pretty well matured out as far as her body. And as far as the muscling, that's going to change with the seasons. Her weight's going to change. Every time the weight changes, it fluctuates. And being a dressage saddle, it can be flocked. And when you've got lack of development in areas, hopefully the saddle fitter is flocking more where the development should be. And you can use shims and use it in there and work it out as the horse develops. Because if you fit a horse's saddle to a horse in a down position or the shoulders being locked position, the saddle tries to keep it that way. And for a dressage horse, for a jumping horse, for any performance horse, the body's got to be able to move. And we don't need to impede that with the saddle. And then you throw the rider in there. Hopefully the rider's sitting centered in the saddle, because that's a whole nother ball of wax, this sticky.
All right, guys, stick around. We're going to take a short little break and come back and talk about I'm gonna mess this up. Now, Navicular
Syndrome.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for helping me out. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. Words are hard sometimes, Mike.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. We had an old supervisor I worked for when I was doing power line work that we had our safety meeting every Monday morning before the crews went out to work. Mm-hmm. Always had to read something out of the safety manual. Old fella, he'd cruise along. He never missed a beat. Hard word, right on to the next one.
You see up here, I fixed the logo. I did the cutout so it's transparent instead of having that. You wanted that logo in there, right?
Right, that is beautiful.
And then when we switch screens, it goes over that one there.
Nice, thank you.
You're welcome. So then they can be all official now. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the official 2017 farrier of the American Eventing Championship. If you'd like to email Mike, you can do that anytime. Go to equinedynamics.com, fill out the contact form there, and don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. Make sure you like and subscribe over on YouTube. Mike's waving to me, I'm waving to him. And also, make sure you're a fan on Facebook. You can get a lot of questions through that. Mike watches that, looks at that all the time. He posts a bunch of old pictures up there. I say old pictures. Some past stuff that he's been doing throughout the week. You can see pictures up there. Some things that he comes across, and he comes across a bunch of good articles. That's Equine Dynamics on Facebook as well. And over to my far right side is Mike Stine.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's probably come up a little easier if you look Mike Stine or Equine Dynamics, because there are a couple people with Equine Dynamics
okay.
business name.
So that's Mike Stine with Equine Dynamics.
Mike Stine at Equine Dynamics.
All one word.
Well, I make it all one word. The rest of the world may not, but I'm not a English lit major or anything.
Did your favorite team win yesterday? Super Bowl was yesterday. Did your team win or no?
I just found out who won.
Right when you came into the studio.
Right.
Well,
I found out last night who was playing.
Get right on top of things. All right. Speaking of being on top of things, Navicular Syndrome. Tell me what you know about Navicular Syndrome and what it is, and why am I saying that right or wrong at the same time?
Because it's easy to say right or wrong. Navicular Syndrome, they're within the coffin joint. The short pastern fits into the top part. It overhangs the back. There's another little bone that is sort of shaped like a canoe that runs across there. That is the navicular bone. You need to do a video of this at home. But wear and tear, impact, loss of circulation to that area, you can get some bone breakdown. Now, there's a lot of soft tissue involved, and basically that area in the back of the foot will get painful. And also, when you get your x-rays, the bone itself will become ragged. You'll start developing lollipops in there. I've worked on horses with cysts in the navicular bone. I've worked with navicular fractures, and that's a whole nother deal. But the navicular bone itself kind of works as a cam. Your deep flexor tendon comes down the back of the leg from the flexor muscle above the knee, wraps around the fetlock, goes down, comes around the navicular bone and attaches to the bottom of the coffin bone. So when that joint flexes, the deep flexor is what pulls that joint, the coffin joint itself, as far as flexing it back. Then you have the extensor tendon on the other side to straighten it out and bring it up. So you've got, let's talk about the saddle. We were just talking about that.
Right.
And I can go into this because this was developing before I ever worked on horses. And creating impact on that horse's front end, creating down shock, there's a big ligament that comes back down the back of the joint and wraps around under to the navicular bone itself, and then connects on in. It ties everything together back there. There's a lot of very busy area in the back of the horse's foot. A lot
Sounds
of
like it.
A lot of ligaments, a lot of close area. But the blood flow goes through the ligament to the bone to feed the bone. Bones have to have circulation to them. If they don't, they die. Because of creating shock and snapping on that ligament all the time, you develop scarring in the ligament. So we got the saddle up on the horse. We got the rider pulled forward on the horse. We're trapping the shoulder because, well, let's tighten up the breastplate. We got the girth in behind the elbow. We're creating more impact on the front of that horse. Hind end can't come into the horse because it can't move the shoulder. Can't pick himself off the front end. So bang, 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 bang. And after a while, you start losing blood flow because beating on that tendon eventually, or that ligament, you start creating scarring in the ligament itself. And as that tightens in, it impedes blood flow through to the navicular bone. So then without blood flow, it starts to deteriorate, starts to get softer, starts to get moth-eaten looking on your x-rays. And that tendon comes around there, and you got that rough edge, and it becomes painful. And also on those horses, since you're beating up the back of the foot so much, you're probably going to have crushed under heels, contracted heels, the whole bit. And some of that's because of the body positioning, never allowing the pressure to come off. So, one of the problems with the Navicular Syndrome is, if you go back to some of the old lameness books, put a egg bar on. That was the cure for everything at one time. Put an egg bar on it, which is
egg bar.
It's a big shoe. It's shaped like an egg.
Sounds like something
It's round. It's oval.
It sounds like something I eat before I go to the gym.
Well, you can eat one of them too. And have you been to a gym?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I was just wondering. But, that was kind of the cure. Now, yes, that is a big base of support under the bone column. But one of the things you run into, and the more I found working with horses, most of those horses are sore in the lower back. And that's one place I learned to check, because I'm rubbing the horse, go down the lower back, and if I'm getting some response, he's leaning on his front end. And I learned that working on the back of the horse, everybody's, well, it's just a front feed. Well, you got to prepare the back end to take the load. And until they can start getting under and picking themselves up, you are supporting the bone column. You're changing the angle if you put a wedge in there, but you never completely get the pressure off. And every pressure doesn't disappear because you put a wedge under or anything like that. It goes somewhere else. If you take pressure off the flexor tendon, you're transferring pressure onto your suspensory ligaments and what all in the joint. Every time you move something, pressure never disappears. It goes somewhere. And, to give that part of the foot a chance, mechanically we got to do something to get the pressure off. And there was a time in life I would have sworn that only horses that had been shot had navicular problems. Horses that had been ridden had navicular problems. But I have, at this point, worked on brood mares that were having lameness issues bad enough that somebody wanted to do something about it. Of course, brood mare sounds means they can make it to the water trough, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have to be sound like your wife's dressage horse would be. But I've had some that have been bad enough that they ended up coming in the vet clinic, and we needed to do something to help them out because they wanted to continue on as a brood mare. And if a horse is too uncomfortable, sometimes their natural reaction to save the body is to abort. So, yes, there are horses out there that have never been shod, ridden and unridden, that have had navicular things. And it is more breed specific. is primarily more of a quarter horse thing. See it some in thoroughbreds, but you know what? We see it in other breeds too. So it can happen to other types of horses. And also I've worked on horses that had navicular in the hind end, which that's a whole nother deal. Typically we always think front feet, and typically it's an impact thing.
Right on. All right, stick around. Mike is going to talk about rocker toes and rocker shoes in the next segment. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He's over there clanking his shoes around. We'll be right back. Okay, just watch the horseshoes on the microphone or something like that. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Do I need to move the camera, or do you want?
Let's aim the camera down a little bit. How is that?
Let's see. Hold on. Let me switch screens there.
This would be an egg bar.
Okay. Let's do. I'm at the mercy of the.
It's falling.
Oh, what did I do?
I think you're taking a picture of the screen, the keyboard.
Yeah.
I think we're probably about as well off putting it up there.
Right there.
That'll work. I can kind of catch out of the corner of my eye where I am.
There. Yeah. Can you see that? I'll leave that screen up for you.
That works.
Okay. You ready? Hello.
Yes, sir.
All right. I hit my headphones thing here. So hold on. There we go. Oops. There we go. I pulled my
Oh,
headphones.
no, I hate when that happens.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stine, don't forget, is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. And over to my far right hand side is Mike Stine.
Good morning, Travis.
Don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. And you can go over to Equine Dynamics, search for Equine Dynamics on YouTube, equinedynamics.com, and make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast and also the video as well. And speaking of video, Mike's got a whole bunch of shoes over there. And those are they aluminum shoes or are they steel shoes?
I've got some aluminum shoes. I've got some steel shoes.
So we're going to talk about rocker toe and rocker shoe and the difference between them. So take it away, Mike.
All right. For starters, we were talking about egg bars just a minute ago, and this is an egg bar.
Oh, that looks like,
shaped like an egg.
Yeah, just like an egg.
And this one came off of an old navicular horse head. And I've done a couple things on this shoe early on. The toe is rockered, meaning the lever point is back up under the shoe, so that as the weight shifts forward, it can start to move. Now, this is pretty extreme as a rocker because the rocker on this shoe is broke back into about here. Normally, it might be part of the web, whatever. Another thing is, on this shoe, the toe had been rolled off back here. And the reason for it being rolled back there, as they roll up here and start to pull, less traction on that type of horse puts less pressure on your tendons.
And I can say, hold it sideways, because I can see where it's got a flare up in front of the camera, Mike.
That camera.
Yeah, that camera. You can see how it's kind of flared up in the front there to cause that rocker there.
Right. And that's a pretty extreme rock as far as set way back on the shoe. And, if you've got a really flat, thin-soled horse, you can't push it back that far. You may be able to bring it here. You can also a rolled toe where you may have a flat shoe on a really thin foot and you hammer it down to create the front of the shoe beveled out.
Right.
There are some made that way. I can't carry everything that is made out there. I'd have to have a semi-truck to shoe horses.
What else you got?
This one has been hammered out, and of course, been cleaned up on the grinder. Now, this is a hand-forged shoe. We had talked about this one before in thoroughbred rehab. It's got a few things. Its clips have been stretched. It also has been tweaked towards the middle on both sides, medial side, lateral side, for medial lateral breakover. You don't always want to do that. If I got a horse that has a bad limb alignment, I may not want to. If I've got a foot that breaks in, I may not want to put that lateral break because you'll end up creating stress on ligaments that you don't want to overstress and end up with problems. But a rocker shoe itself, as they come in, they'll load, come across, and roll a little bit of a rolling action across the ground. And you don't want this to to grab here, so you don't want it to be a break as I come here and stop it. So when if you do bevel it in, sometimes that will kind of dip down. So you need to be aware of that as you're doing it. And the horse needs to just roll right on across it.
Now, what style of riding do you would see these shoes on? What kind of horse?
Typically, a horse with some mechanical issues coming up.
But is it dressage? Is it hunter jumper? Is it or is it racing horses?
Low palmar angle, stress in the back of the foot,
okay.
Navicular syndrome sometimes, depending on what else is going on.
So it could be on any horse on any level.
It can be. And two different extremes. You know, a horse with suspensory issues, some of them don't like a rocker. And so you're going to have to figure out everything that's going on in a horse. And there again, can someone ride a horse? That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And there are a number of them made. And like I said, some of them you don't necessarily want the lateral breakover. If I got a pigeon-toed horse, that's going to be a different deal. If you have too much lateral breakover, they always want to go this way anyway. And if I get him where he's going that way too much, what am I doing to this joint? What am I doing to this joint? Snap,
right.
Snap, snap. So sometimes you want a full fit as far as your breakover laterally. You may want to set out on the edge. And, you see these ads for stuff people have come up with, all this, and they all fix everything. Well, they don't. And you've got to pay attention to the whole package to decide, is this appropriate or not? And the more times you screw up and figure out why you screwed up, hopefully that steers you in a little better direction. But this is one that is factory made. This is a Nanrick shoe. This is built with rails, meaning inside raised rail.
That's a pretty shoe, Mike.
It is pretty.
It is a pretty shoe. I put that over my door.
It is pretty. And the reason for that is it rocks forward. And these shoes, the belly of the rock is set here. On these horses, I want this horse, when he picks up load, if I pick up the other foot, for it to slightly elevate. In fact, you can use one of these truss gauges on the front of it, and you can watch it do it. If I pick it up and it's setting back, I need to readjust. Like on this shoe, I can adjust, is the belly centered here, is the belly centered here, and you got a really upright foot versus a very low slung foot on where you might want to do the belly. And if you have a foot that's flat, you can always fill in with urethanes on a steel shoe or acrylics on aluminum if you decide to forge one out yourself. And they come in a few different styles. This one is for a narrow foot. There is a same pattern made in steel. Now the steel shoe, since it's steel, I can take that and make it to a perfectly round donut or pretzel or anything else I want it to be. But it's the same thing. Forward rock, forward rock, forward rock. Now, usually when these things hit the market, we get real carried away. It works a little bit. We'll do it on everybody. Or we'll do it just a whole lot, which that's not necessarily appropriate either. And then there are some that are made for a whole lot.
That looks like $1 million shoe right there, Mike. That looks like something a transformer would have on its feet.
It's not exactly a giveaway. I'll promise you that. Some of these things I carry in my rig.
That looks like a car part, like it came off a car. I mean, it's so shiny and it's so machined out.
Mm-hmm. And there are shoes that I have in there that are cut out on a CNC machine, and they're expensive. But the problem with that is I can build them in the shop. It's not going to be that pretty,
right?
For one thing. And then if I look at what my shop time is and start billing for my shop time, sometimes I'm cheaper just to go ahead and buy something like this,
right?
And I have the capability of building something to do this. Just recently built something along these lines on top of a Kirkhard SX8, which is a big foot, because they don't, there's not that much demand for one in that size.
Let me see that one there, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
How much is this shoe? Just for the shoe itself.
I'm not remembering exactly, but probably bumping could be anywhere from, depending on the size, 50, 60, 70, maybe even $80. Some of the CNC machined shoes, if I can get something specialized done into them, I could get a heart bar left in that, or a buttress plate, which I can add in myself with a torch or pad work or whatever.
See, if my horse was $1 million horse. It is $1 million horse. I would have these nice, shiny, sparkling shoes on my horse just for show, just because they're pretty. And everyone, when that horse walks into the barn, everyone goes, "Ooh, look at those. He's got the new whatever Duramax aluminum plated shoes."
And I'm going to tell you a little secret. No, this one you would not.
No?
No, your wife had some low pomerangle problems, got the vet out, got some x-rays done. That's how I ended up being involved. We had some mechanical issues. You got a horse you're trying to perform with. And, you know, a large number of my dressage horses are in that category. I pick them up after there's some damage, and we figure out a way to keep them going. For your horse and what it's doing, this would be way too much in mechanics.
Yeah, but it's pretty looking.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. But, you know, I've got a rocker format on your wife's horse, got some leather in there and a few other things, but I've built it out of a fairly basic steel shoe that has been heavily modified.
And saved us millions.
No, you've got a horse.
I know. It's like boat. You know, you always throw another $1,000 at it. All right, guys, stick around. We'll wrap up the show. We're going to take a quick little break and wrap up the show. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back.
It's like owning a boat with a hole in it. You can't bail out the water fast enough.
Yeah, I know. I bought a boat years ago. Nice one. You know, nice big cabin cruiser, and we'd go up and down the St. Johns River and up and down the Inland Coast and stuff. But we only had one issue with it. The impeller went out, which is what brings in the water to cool the engine. That's the only thing that ever happened to it. All my other friends, they would buy all these boats and all that, and they would have the trim. The motors would get stuck up. The trim couldn't come down, you know, to move the motor up and down, you know, to get it up and out of the water. All the problems. Thank God I never had any big issues with my boat. A tune-up was like, I think, $700, but that's a tune-up.
You must not have had it very long.
Actually, we did. I bought it brand new. Let's see. In 2009. And we sold it when we moved up here because we had nowhere to so I had probably had it 6 years. Probably 6 years. I don't want to put on my horses. You ready?
Yes.
All right. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. If you have any questions you would like to ask Mike Stine, the way you do that is go to equinedynamics.com. At the bottom of the page is a little contact section. Fill it out. Make sure you put podcast in the subject line so Mike can decipher between his regular emails and your email for the show, and we'll answer it on the very next episode as well. And if you can't do that, you can go over to Facebook. Make sure you like him over there. That's Mike Stine, Equine Dynamics on Facebook, and also on YouTube as well. For every podcast we do, I have a matching video that goes in tandem with what we're talking about here on the show. Now, Mike Stine's over on my far-hand side. Hello.
Hello, Travis.
So what did we learn today, Mike? Dusty story, saddle problems.
Well, saddle problems, sometimes there's more than just the saddle fit going on. Anything that impedes movement of the horse will show up on reaction on what happens to feet on the ground.
All right, and Navicular Syndrome. Did I say it right that time?
Close enough. Navicular Syndrome. And I may not be saying it right.
And what is Navicular Syndrome?
A breakdown of the navicular bone. You can end up with some bursitis in the joint. You can have some tendon problems and ligament problems around the joint. But, you know, as Dr. Management said, caudal heel pain. And as far as the breakdown of the foot, you need some x-rays to see what's going on with the bone itself. And you need to be working with a vet, and we need some lateral x-rays to see where we are mechanically, because a low pomerangle horse is putting stress on that area.
And shoe modifications. What's the difference between a rocker toe and a rocker shoe?
There are differences in the shoes. There's difference in the way the shoes react. They are appropriate for different situations. Like I say, I've had horses that had suspensory problems show up that did not like the full rocker, but you could rocker a toe and leave a flat base on them, and they could be very happy. They are all individuals, and we have to figure out the whats and whys of the situation.
And anything else you'd like to add, Mike? Go Rams!
I'm shocked that you didn't have any more problems with that with a boat.
I know, yeah. All right, guys, we'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening to us, downloading us, sharing us, doing all the stuff that links us to you and you to us as well. On behalf of Mike Stine over there.
Y'all have a good one. Have a good day, Travis, and thank you.
My name's Travis Holmes. Until next time, thanks. Take care.
Little cowboy, close your eyes. And
There you have it.
all of the doggies
I gotta get you a metal or a rubber mat to put up, like a nice thin rubber mat to put on there, because like when you hit the table, it goes right up this arm and right into the microphone, and all you hear is the springs bouncing around. Yeah, but no, these microphones are good. It shouldn't be that bad. The other ones that we had.
Hi, Lucky. Good night, Ned. Good night, Ned.